nobody can outsell me. It's very difficult too. I sell a lot of stuff. The art of being good at sales and there's the art of making sales, and they're different things. I was probably selling at that point, realistically, without exaggerating, 16 hours a day. I scaled it back and then grew it back up again. And I think we grew it up to like probably 35. We went from like 0 to 10 and then like to 50. That didn't take more than 4 or 5 months. And then it was like 100 probably a couple months after that. We were at 2.5 million within 2 years. I'm the best version of myself in the worst possible scenarios. That gives me a sense of comfort. There's nothing I can't handle. If you try and fix multiple things at once, you'll never learn which one actually did it. So you have to have the discipline of only fixing one thing, knowing that 10 are broken.
How did you start and build Sales Sniper, that company?
So Sales Sniper, you know, as most things, it was sort of a happenstance, to be honest. I sort of didn't really go into it with that idea. When I left, I was part owner in a like chain of gyms called Result-Based Training. Guy was the face of it, called Travis Jones, and it was like 18 small group training studios. And so I had my own small group training studio in Sydney, in Bondi, which is actually still running with my former business partner. And then we opened up another one with Travis in Sydney. And then what we did is, so I had one RBT and then Travis had a bunch, and then there was a few other owners that had like, and Travis owned like half of each one, right? And so, and then from there, like we sort of all came together, everyone put all their gyms into one big company. And then the goal was like pool the profit and grow the businesses, you know? And so I sort of did that for a couple years, and I became sort of just like the default kind of, like I was an owner and I ran 2 of the gyms, and I was like the sales guy for like a bunch of the openings. And so, and then like I sort of became the sales guy because I was sort of like the top salesperson. I wasn't very good, but like we didn't really have much of a choice. Like we would get 500 leads a month, which was name, email, phone number, and then we had to produce 200 sales. You know, and so that was the economics of it. And so we sort of had to do that. And then we would do that, and that was how we opened the gym. And then we would get another, what did we do? We did 500 to get 200, and then we would do like 300 to get 100, 300 leads to get 100 sales, because we were doing like 4-week challenges. And so like I was just like full-time selling essentially. And then in between sales, I would go out and service the clients and do group sessions and stuff like that. And so I got really unhappy with how that business was being run. They wanted to open up a bunch of gyms at the same time, and I said I don't think that's a good idea. And I had previously stated a few times like, oh, I don't like the way certain things are happening. And every time it was like, I was like, I think this will happen. And it would happen, and then I would say, okay, next time listen to me. And then they would go, yep, and it was all like a voting system. And then the last time, exactly what I said would happen happened, and I was like, okay, guys, I'm fucking out of here. So I just literally like dissolved my equity. Like I was like, I'm out. And so like went back to my other gym that I still owned and that I was still business partners with him, because me and him had gone into RBT together. So I ran that side and he ran the Bondi side. And then I'd not been involved directly in that, but we were still partners in both the ventures. And he wasn't involved in the other side. For maybe like 2 years, I hadn't even like really needed to step in the gym. And so I came back and he's like, oh man, like, you know, I've been running it for a while without you, so I don't really need you anymore. And I said, oh man, I've gotten pretty decent at sales. Like I can just be the sales guy. Like I don't need to, you can run the thing and just make me the sales guy. I'll take my dividends and equity and shit. He said no. And so he basically said like, you know, and listen, he's a nice guy. I think someone was in his ear, but, you know, basically said, well, I haven't signed a new lease. So if you do come back, like I'm done. And I was like, all right. So we negotiated like a buyout. And then, you know, I was sitting there. It was pretty shit. It wasn't much money. But I was like, okay, well, what can I do now? Because like I thought I was going to do all this stuff. I'd spent all these years building gyms, and now like just sort of came back and got blindsided, to be honest. And my wife was like 8 months pregnant with our second at the time. And so I had like no money, like none, zero. Like I'm talking like not enough to pay rent, right? And so I was like, all right, well, I'm pretty decent at selling. So what I did is I like called everyone that I knew because I've been running gyms for a long time, and so I knew a lot of people that had
Yeah.
similar gyms, and I was like, "Hey, I'll be your sales guy." Because the hardest thing was like the balance between sales and fulfillment, and like doing the
Sure.
doing everything. I was like, "I'll be your sales guy." I think it was $375 a week base, and then like $22 a sale or something like that. I was charging for like a usually I was selling like a 6 week for like $700 type thing, right? And I would
Wow.
just sell it over the phone, and I would take payment over the phone, and that's like was my sort of skill set. Whereas most people had them go into the gym, and so like, but there was a drop off, so I just didn't see the point. And so yeah, so I did that, and I ended up working with like a few different gyms at the same time, and then like kind of word got out about that, and then the sorry, I'm just recovering from a bit of a flu. So like I ended up with like 5 gyms all in Australia that I was kind of doing the sales for, and then I was like, oh okay, so like I was making probably like I was making more money than what I probably ever had, to be honest. I was probably making like 10 grand a month at that stage.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, this is going pretty well. This is kind of an interesting thing. Like, what am I? And I was like, oh, I think this is like a sales agency, type thing. I didn't really know what it was. And then,
Yeah.
from there, like the marketers for the gyms reached out to me, and like ended up just like flooding me with referrals, like flooding me. Like I'm like an astronomical amount of referrals, like hundreds. And so
Wow. Sure.
I just sort of like started picking the gyms that I could handle, and then like trying to get people on board, and like it was interesting. I grew to like 50 gyms really quickly, and then it was like too much, and then I had to fire like 30 of them. It was too hard, and like I
What do
just
you
didn't have
think?
the right sales guys.
What do you think happened there? I was gonna say, yeah. What do you think happened there to cause you to have to? I mean, I know you scaled very quickly. 50's a fuckload very quickly.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
what was the catalyst of having to like scale back so quickly?
It was just like I didn't have any. It was just like trying to replicate me, you know, and so like there really isn't really any systems or processes. It was like so like and like I didn't know anything about the industry, so I knew nothing about how to call leads. So I had to figure out how to call leads in different countries, right? Because I was like time zone hopping and doing. I was like going like across the world, right? So I could like start at like 5 a.m. and then sell till like 10 p.m. but in the peak times. So I had like a little global
Mm.
chart of like 9 to 11 a.m. right local time, and I could just like go all around like that and then come back to Sydney, you know what I mean? And then go over to Adelaide, then go down to Perth, and then like head over to the UK, And so like I had to figure out all this shit by myself, and I didn't know how to use any CRMs. I'd never used a CRM. And so I kind of had to figure it all out. Like I used this like Chrome extension called Crazy Call, where I would just call leads, and it was like it's like $1 for a phone number or some shit like that. And I would use Skype, and I would yeah, it was like just lots of shit, man. Like I was just selling all day. I was probably selling at that point, realistically, without exaggerating, 16 hours a day. I think I was
Wow.
probably on the phones for 16 hours a day, and then yeah, just kind of like I scaled it back and then like grew it back up again. And I think we grew it up to like probably 35, 40 gyms with like 10 sales guys. Each sales guy would do like 3 gyms.
And is that still your like the main focus for Sales Sniper, or what did
No,
it end up transitioning to?
no, it's a good question. I ended up getting asked by one of the marketing companies, a guy called Riley. I still have a good relationship from more gym members. He was like an Australian guy, and
Mm.
he was like, "Oh, do you want to like try selling our marketing services to gyms?" And I was like, "Yeah, I guess." Like, fuck, it's like a $7,500 like marketing package, right, for like 3 months or
Yeah.
whatever it was for gyms. And he was like, "How much money do you want for comms?" And I was like, "I don't know, mate, like $300. Like that seems outrageous." And he was like, "Oh, I'll give you 400." And I was like, "Sweet." Meanwhile, another sales guy that was getting like I think probably well over 1,000. But I said it. I remember I called a mate of mine. I was like, "This fucking idiot's going to give me $400 to close a deal. Like, this is the stupidest thing ever." Right? And so I had 16 sales calls and I closed 15 of them because like they were gym owners and they needed leads,
Yeah.
and it seemed like it made sense, And like I spoke gym owner, and so
Mm.
like it was really just through like I had a good like I had a good way of talking to them. I guess it wasn't much. I don't think it was much sales prowess, but and then from there like I started looking. I like made money, and I was like, fuck, I just made like more money in like a week than I ever have in a month. And I was like, what is this high ticket sales space? So I started Googling stuff, and I was like Googling Dan Locke and watching videos, and then like a video came up of like Taylor Welch, and he had like a sales mentor. He's actually a friend
Yeah.
of mine these days, which was pretty funny. And yeah, they were like, had this $97 21-day sales challenge. And just before that started, I had started selling for this business coach, and it was like $2,000 a sale. It was like a 30K product. It was $2,000 a
Okay.
sale, but it was up front. So it was a really good comms deal, to be honest. Like, so I was like selling probably like two to three a week at that point. I was probably selling, right? Like hustle muscle, going hard. I was like the top sales rep in that in that company, and then sort of did this 21-day sales challenge, and then sort of like destroyed everybody, like close rate, cash collected, like everything. So, and then from there, I started like getting a name for myself, I suppose. And then so people were doing gyms, and I was doing the high ticket stuff. Like my
Okay.
sales guys were doing gyms, and then I was like, I started getting so many people messaging me about like done for you sales or me being their sales guy, that I was like, oh, okay, well maybe I can transition to this. And so we sort of like got together, me and my business partner at the time, James, and we're like, let's fucking fire the gyms and just go hard in the paint on the high ticket, because like it's 20 sales to make half what we make on one high ticket sale. So then, and then I was like, well, I don't know how we're going to get clients and sales reps. And I was like, I guess I'll just do lots of content. So I just started doing like daily posting on my Facebook videos and shit. And then just started getting more clients and then more referrals, because like I was an external sales guy that could come in and sort of, I would sell it, right? And then I would teach someone how to sell it from my team, and then get them off, and then I would go to the next one. So I would come in, sell, establish, boom. So it was like we always had a really good first impression because I was the sales guy. And then I met
And what
Jeremy
level? Oh,
throughout that process.
I was gonna ask, like, what level were you coming in at, like with the companies when you first started? Like, what
Most of
point
them
had they been
were
selling to?
most of them were like, say, like at that stage where the founder wants to stop selling, so 50 to 100K a month type stuff. You know, some of them were way higher. Some of them were like they had an internal team and they wanted to split test an external team, which I don't do these days. I would never do that. It just doesn't. It just it's a bad vibe, right? But yeah, it's sort of, you know. And I've had startups, but like they had money, you know.
Gotcha.
So it really it's all over the shop, to be honest. I've never been really good at like picking a winner. Like
Okay.
it's
It
really
just kind of
difficult.
like finger in a bunch of pies kind of thing.
Yeah, like I mean, with the sales sniper specifically, like with my own business, I know how to pick a winner. But when it comes to like sales sniper, there's no way to know. It's sort of like hiring a sales guy. Like, how do you know they're any good? You can role play with them, but they can still be shit. Do you know what I mean? So it's like
Yeah,
you
for
just
sure.
don't know. I mean, so but yeah, and then from there, like I met Jeremy when I was selling on this offer. This business coaching offer, and Sales Sniper was going. I think by the time I met Jeremy, Sales Sniper was probably doing a couple $100,000 a month. We went from like zero
Okay.
to 10 and then like to 50. I would say it only took, man, 50K a month. I would say, man, that didn't take more than 4 or 5 months. And then it was like 100, probably a couple months after that. We were at 2.5 million within 2 years a month.
Wow.
Um,
And what do you think caused it to scale so quickly? I mean, especially that first 0 to 50 or 10 to 50K. What do you think allowed you to
I mean, I was
replicate
the sales
yourself?
guy, and I was just, just relentless. I was a very effective salesperson. Like people could argue that like there are more skilled salespeople, like for sure, whatever, but nobody can outsell me. It's just a fact. Like it's. I mean, like it's very difficult to, you know. Like when I'm like I sell a lot. Like even now, like these days, I sell a lot of stuff. And so it's just because like there's like the art of being good at sales and there's the art of making sales, and they're different things. And so
Can you explain the difference?
like there's like creating, like I tell people all the time, like create an environment around yourself where like the sales are constantly coming to you, right? But that requires constant activity. you know? So you have to constantly be bringing and working deals constantly, nonstop. And I do that all day, every day, like, and I have for a long time. And I try and keep really good relationships, and I say yes to a lot of things. And so I'm generous with my time to some degree. And then like, so I end up having good relationships with people. And so I get a lot of referrals. I probably get 5 to 7 referrals a week
Wow.
for different things, whether it's for like coaching. I don't do a lot of coaching, but I'll coach some business owners, right?
Yeah.
Like 2 at a time, I'll kind of do. And then, you know, we have the call center. The big focus is the dialer, which is the software which the call center runs on. Like that's the big focus. The call center was like a market penetration play because nobody cares if I create like a software. Like everyone's like, all right, weirdo. Like, but if I create a call center, they'll call your leads for you. Then people will be interested in that. But the only
Yeah.
metrics I ever spoke about was like pickup rates and contact rates and speed to lead and stuff like that, which is, and then the dialer launched, and I'll probably have 1,000 seats within the first 3 months of launching. Like I signed a deal for 327 seats the other day. Like we'll be one of the fastest growing software companies like that hasn't borrowed money probably ever. Like I would say fastest to $1 million ARR. Like it'd be pretty hard to beat us on a seat based allocation. Like not like some crazy expensive software. But like we'll have, I reckon by the end of Q1, like the US Q1, by the end of March, we'll probably have 1,500 seats.
What's the plan with that company?
Sell it.
Like, what do you want to take it to? Sell it?
Yeah. Sell it for a lot of money.
What do you want to? Fair. Do you have a number in mind that you want to sell it for?
If I can walk away with 40 million in my account, I'll be very happy. Even 25 would be a number. Like if I could take home 25, that's fucking sweet, mate. Like people be like, oh, but you could sell it for $1 billion in 2 years' time. I don't give a fuck, mate. Like I don't know. I don't need $1 billion. Like what am I gonna do with $1 billion? Like so, like so that would mean we probably have to sell it for 100. I have a business partner, who's a great dude, and then after taxes and whatnot, you know,
Sure.
sell it for 100 million, which is very doable. I know I can get a business to 10 million, and that business can have a 10x rev valuation pretty easily because it's like true SaaS, with a service line on top as a back end back sell, which is very profitable. And with fast growth and not taking money, and it's not like influencer based. Like we get we book 5 sales calls a day, 4 to 5 a day, with zero marketing. Zero. Like we haven't launched ads yet. Our HubSpot's being set up at the moment. Our website got finished like yesterday. Like it's still me and Declan like doing sales copy. You know what I mean? Like we've got nothing.
That's
We've got
awesome.
nothing. There's like 5 people in that whole company. It's all product focused. But like we have a really good plan and a fucking great product. Like, Jesus, it's a good product. Like 25% pickup rates. So Cole
Yeah.
Weldon just signed to come over, so he's bringing his
Did he?
business over. Yeah. Taylor Welch is coming over. Russ Rufino is on our system. Like it basically like the entire coaching industry will be on that dialer within 6 to 8 months because it's. I mean, if you're getting 3% pickup rates and you're making 100K a month, if you get 20% pickup rates, you'll probably make 150 with the same leads. Because
And
you're talking to 5 times the people.
what is the cost of the seats on that? Or are you having like a minimums, or are you
It's
what
3
are your
seats,
kind of like plan
3
with that?
seats minimum, and it's 250 per month.
Okay. Well, I mean,
Which like, yeah, it's and we manage the dial, and we actually do like the back end for you. So we have like our own tech stack. Like, I mean, it's our own software, but we have a bunch of our own stuff. And then we have like analytics people that look at the analytics and then make tweaks to your campaigns to like tweak and increase pickup rates and shits. And that, which is all baked into the seat fee, which is super scalable too. We can scale that up to like 10,000 seats pretty easily. Because like, it's like, we'll be able to train an AI to do it within like a year, but we just don't have the time to do that right now. But yeah, man, it's fucking pretty dope. It was the biggest issue
that's
that I
awesome.
saw in the industry, and so I was like, if I can solve that, I'll be a billionaire.
Well, I was going to ask how did you go from? I mean, I know we jumped there a little bit, but how did you go from with Sales Sniper? You said you were just meeting Jeremy Miner when you were selling that business coaching, and you
Yeah.
had Sales Sniper kind of running in the background. How did that kind of transition you, I guess, to coming into, um, well, seventh level to start off?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So me and Jeremy got along really well. We still do. Like, he's a fucking true mentor of mine. Like, the dude infuriates me to no end. But he will always have he gave me the freedom to never have to worry about money, right? So like I'll always like, you know, I don't work with him anymore. Like I don't work at seventh level. Like I sold my equity, but I'll always like look out for that dude. Like he's because he genuinely changed my life. And if you want sales training, don't ask me. Go to fucking seventh level, right? Like NEPQ is the best. It is the best as long as you're not dumb. Like if you're a dum dum, like and you're a self-proclaimed dum dum, just don't do it. Like, and that's not saying like that's not a bad thing. I'm not saying like that is a. But if you can't grasp like sort of some more complex things, then like don't look to throw everything out the window and go full NPQ because I think it's the thinking man's game, right? Like
Gotcha.
once you figure it out, it is fucking lethal, right? But some people struggle to figure it out. Do you know what I mean? Like that's just the way it
And
is.
when you partnered up with Jeremy, how did that look? Like, how did that go from you,
I'm playing
selling
it
for
out.
him
I'm quite
to being
strategic.
CEO?
I'm quite strategic. Like, I know that like I can present very well, and so if I can get in front of people, I can ask 3 questions and then they'll approach me. Right? If you ask a really good question, you're smart, right? And smart identifies smart. I'm quite intelligent. Like I've been tested. I have an IQ of well over 150, right? So like I'm quite smart, right? And so like that gives me a distinct advantage, and I'm very open about that. Like my problem solving capabilities are very, very good. And so like, and I was given that, that's a gift, right? Like I didn't earn that. Um, you know what I mean? So like, whatever, I'm quite lucky, but I have dyslexia, I have ADHD, like, those things kind of all go together, so there's like a bit of a chaos to it, but, like I can barely fucking read, like reading is a struggle. But,
But you're in sales. You don't need to read, right?
exactly, right, right. Reading's for losers and back end people. Um, and so, yeah. And so, I got sales training from Jeremy, back when it was like 101, because like the seventh level was a thing, but it wasn't a thing, right? Like it's hard to kind of explain. Like he'd been trying for a number of years to try and get seventh level off the ground, but he's not a business guy. He's a
Yeah.
sales phenom. So like, but he has a very expensive lifestyle in the same way that I do now. I didn't understand it when I met him, right? Like, but like my house costs like it's worth about 10 mil, right? So, like it's expensive, to live, in where I live and all that kind of stuff, and kids and schools and all that kind of shit. So I didn't get it at the time when I met him, because I remember. Anyway, I'll tell that story in a second. But I did coaching with him. I gave him 80% of all the money I had. It was 50. It was 40,000, right? US, and I had like 50,000 US total. And like I remember he sold me via DM. I still have all the DMs. He sold me via DM basically with like voice notes, and like I was so nervous that he wasn't going to let me pay him when it came down to like the actual sales call. And he fucking that dude tore me open. I had no chance. Like no chance. And I didn't know him from Adam, bro. Like I saw one video with him with Eli, and I was friends with Eli Wild, and like bought his $2,000 course, bought like the NEPQ 2.0, like the original one. And I was like, fuck, this is good, but there are some pieces missing here. Like, and I went through the portal. I still hold the record for the most amount of times going through the portal. Like go in there. It's hundreds of times I've been through it. Right. Like, cause I can see all the logins and my name is so far above everybody else's. The number 2 guy is Sean Jones. Another guy, cold caller, makes about 150K a month. Really, really solid dude. Cold caller. Right. Fucking savage. You ever learn cold calling? Go to fucking Sean Jones. I think he's one of the coaches at seventh level. Actually, does like 2 sessions a week.
Oh,
Yeah. The reason why they have good coaching, the system that we put in place there was like get people who are extremely good at it, who we
yeah.
taught, and just pay them like an hourly rate to do like 2 hours a week. So they get paid like $1,000 an hour, right, for 2 sessions a week. So they get paid like $2,000 a week. But like, if we paid them any less, they wouldn't do it. Do you know what I mean? But they do it because it's a favor to us because we taught them, You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's sort of like the back and forth, you know? So that's why the coaches there are so good, because they're guys who do it, you know? Whereas
Mm.
like it's not like, you know, it's not like pretendees, like guys who used to sell.
Yeah.
You know, that was me and Jeremy. We were guys who used to sell. Um but yeah, so I'm losing track. But yeah, so anyway, I did one-on-one with Jeremy, and I started like I asked a couple questions that you could tell he was like, "Oh, okay. Yeah, you're one of the ones that can figure this out." And
Like what?
so, well, one of the questions I asked, because he does a lot of inflections and tonality and stuff like that, and I was like, he said like, "Why is this important to you now, though?" And I said, "Okay, did you pause before the now and then emphasize now so you could make that person think time frame so that the answer was more predictable?" And he goes, "That's exactly why I did it." And he goes, "In all my years of coaching people, you're the only person to figure that out by yourself."
Mm.
Right? And he goes like, I go, "Yeah, it makes sense." And he goes, "Do you want to be my sales guy?" Like there and then.
Just on the spot.
Yeah. That was after like our fourth or fifth session, I think. And we'd been going back and forth on Voxer, and I was really prepared for my sessions, right? Like I had like snippets of like little bits of calls and stuff like that. And so, yeah. And so it was really interesting. And yeah. And then I was like, "Okay, what have you got?" And I was still selling on this Australian offer. But I was like, "Yeah, I can do US times as well." So I could do like a full day Australian, full day US. I was living in Perth, right? Which is like garbage time for US, but like it meant that you could basically do two full-time jobs, right? I was like, "Fuck it."
Yeah.
And so I went in as a sales guy, and they had these marketing people in there. And they were like, "Okay, so it's 2 weeks before we launch funnels." And I was like, "Fuck that. I got kids to feed." I was like, "Where are people?" And they had started this Facebook group. It had 900 people in it. I reckon that Facebook group now has probably got a couple 100,000, right? The Sales Revolution group. And so I was
Yeah.
like, "Sweet, I'll just start farming people." And I had a name in high ticket already, and Jeremy really didn't.
Mm.
And so all the first clients were high ticket because they were people in my network. And
Yeah.
so
Okay.
I was like, "Hey, I'm making at that time like 40, 50 grand a month, right? As a closer." You know what I mean? I was doing
Mhm.
daily content. I was doing the whole thing. And so I started inviting everybody over to Sales Revolution group, and like I was posting on my Facebook, and I was saying like, "Jeremy taught me all this stuff," which he did. And so, and then I started growing to like 100 grand a month, like getting like after that, you know what I mean? Sort of growing up and up and up as my close rates and show rates will increase from using an EPQ. And then from there, yeah, man, like, so like the first 6 months, it was just all high ticket guys, right?
Okay.
So
Yeah.
a lot of it was from my network, from Eli Wild's network, right? Because like they had done stuff together, and then like that gave us time to like build, to like get Jeremy over full time, have him start the content machine, and then we made the active decision of like, okay, like after like I didn't like the deal he had. He had given like a 50% rev share, and I was like, this doesn't seem fair to all these people. So then I came in and I said, "Hey man, like I've got Sales Sniper. Sales Sniper was doing well over $1 million a month at this point, right?" And so I was like, "Hey, I've got some infrastructure over here. Why don't we borrow some of the infrastructure that I have at Sales Sniper, and you know we can get all those people out of seventh level, get you over full time, basically pay him 100% of the revenue," right? But he was doing all the coaching, which is fine. But I wasn't taking my commissions or anything for a while. And I was like, "Let's
Mm.
just build this thing up." And he offered me 50% of the company. And I said no. I probably should have said yes. I said, "I'll take
Why'd you say
25%.
no?
I just felt like the dude had spent 20 years putting together an EPQ. And for me, just because I like, you know, I felt like that's where the value of the company was. And
Mm.
so I said, "I'll take 25%. I feel like that's a fair, you know, I felt like you spend 20 years, and just because I've spent 2 years getting good at something, but you spent 20 years, like, you know, this is ridiculous." And so anyway, I said that. I don't regret it. I would have made, I mean, yeah, I don't regret it. But, yeah, so, you know, and then we kind of went on our way. And then over the course of the years, like, you know, they both grew at its peak. They were both doing at its peak when they were both like, they were both around the 2.5 a month. Right.
Mhm.
And then like it just got too big, and the money was, there's so much more profit at seventh level that I started to scale down Sales Sniper, and focus more
Gotcha.
on seventh. Sales Sniper never stopped. It just scaled down to where there wasn't 50 accounts, because
What did
like
it
it
scale
was
down to? Like what was
like
manageable on
10,
the side?
like 10.
Gotcha.
Now, and then I pivoted away from done for you sales entirely and just do like the sales management stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how did that differ from the done for you side,
The
like
done for
in
you
terms
is
of
like, it's
pivoting?
just a complete sales infrastructure from top to bottom, right?
Hmm.
The only problem with that is like, it ends up being, you know, it ends up being like, for example, like I had an offer, I got them to 3 million a month from zero in 6 months. Crypto, hot offer, right? I'm not saying it was all me, but we had a phenomenal ROAS, had a great sales system. But like, you know, you're getting charging people like 25%, right? Because it's a complete infrastructure and there's no base. There's a ton of risk on behalf of the sales agency. You know what I mean? And then you can't control shit. So like you've got all your tech people, your ops people, your finance people are tracking everything. You're paying the reps. You're doing this in the hopes that this guy doesn't fuck you in any way, right? Or like
Hmm.
shit the bed. The marketing goes down. You have no control over the marketing, right? And so you have a ton of operational risk. And so like and then the bills get so big. You know, these guys are paying me 500, 600 grand a month, one client, US,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
And it's like they don't want to pay that bill when they can pay their sales guys 10%. They can just go through, copy everything I've done, and then replicate it inside. Do you know what I mean? And like, I don't mind if
Yeah.
they do that, if they tell me, because I'll help them do it. Like, so after some experiences like that, which isn't even like a bad experience, I'm just saying, like, after seeing that happen a bunch of times, I started basically going, like, hey, this is what's going to happen. We'll get you to $1 million a month, and you're going to start hating paying my bill because it's 200 something $1,000 a month, and no one likes paying anyone $200,000 a month, right? No matter how good a job they're doing, right? And so, like, we'll get to that point, and then we'll look at staffing your team internally, and then we'll manage it and stuff like that, right? So we'll get a closer in, train him, manage him, take a 5% override, boom, 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 like that, and that created a better one. Like with Ryan Serhnant, that's how we did it. A bunch of other people, like that's how we did it. And then it was like the done for you. It was like, I started saying like, I reckon it's better for your business if I just come in, set everything up, staff it, you pay them, right? They're
Mm.
your tech. Like I'll create the system, but it's your tech. They're your reps, right? And I take a fee of like 7K a month and 5% of revenue, right?
Is that
And
kind
so
of like the standard that you did?
yeah, that's what I started doing like a couple years ago because like it just started pivoting and it's just way easier. Like, and like there's just way less operational complexity from the sales sniper side. Like I don't have to manage all the reps because like, if you have 50 reps, you have to have a couple people just wrangling them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
for
then
sure.
you end up having like managers that manage, and then like that's where agencies die, right? Whereas like I can probably honestly, man, like I can do 8 sales management clients by myself. Like it's a breeze, right?
Okay.
Like I know how to do that. That's easy, right? So like right now, I think we have like, I don't know, like 12, 14, something like that, sales management clients.
And is that like when you say you can do 8 to 10 of them yourself easily? Is that because you've insulated, you put in a sales leader, a sales manager, and then you're more dealing with that person, or is it you're
Yeah,
still
I
dealing
have
with
a doer.
that team directly? Yeah.
No, there's a doer.
Okay.
The doer gets like, I charge like usually like 5 to 7K a month and like 5% rev or something like that. And the doer will get like 2K and 2%. They'll do
Okay.
all the work, but they'll do like 3 accounts. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay.
So they'll make 15, whatever, 20, depending on the size of the accounts. Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
And then like, but I can do, part time, I can do 10. Like that's easy. That's really easy. Like it
And
really is. It's because like they know what they're doing. So I just have to meet with them for like an hour a week. That's it. And I might meet with the business owner. We do projections and I help them. Do you know what I mean? So it's like I'm helping the
mm.
business owner and I help my guy. Or if they have a really good internal sales manager, then like I'll just use that guy and I'll just take all of it.
Okay. And what do you think led you to wanting to, like, I know you made the shift from done for you sales into the management side. What you said there, you had a few people that had kind of not fucked you over, but you've kind of gone through, you've seen the recipe happen time and time again. Was there one in particular that you're like, yeah, okay, that that's done with the agency side for the done for you?
To be honest, more of it was like the people who just, because it's like a lot of it's comms only. Like they just take
Mm.
forever to do shit. Or like you get influencers where it's like it's not their main business, right?
Okay.
Like it's like their side. Or like a big one was like ClickFunnels, right? So I ran Russell Brunson stuff for probably like 8 or 9 months, right? For all their mastermind
Hmm.
sales. It's not their focus, right? So
Mm.
when it's not their
Yeah.
focus, it's very difficult to get the things that you need done to do it properly. And so you're constantly trying to like band-aid solution everything. And so like I literally they came to me with like, hey, we want you to hit these numbers. And I mapped out like exactly what they had to do. Right. And this was literally the conversation was like, okay, so I need these exact things. I'll do yada yada yada, right? And like for like leads, like this is forget the money that you want me to make you. You need to give me this many leads. Oh, sorry, and like none of it was unreasonable. And they were like, okay, well we can't do that right now. And I was like, oh, then I can't hit the number. And they go, oh, we need you to hit the number. I go, but man, it's not miracles. Like I can't produce you more money with less leads. Like that's just not the way it works, right? And so they just went like, well, I just said like, man, I'm not going to like agree to something that this is like after months. And I was like, I can't agree to something that like is physically impossible because it just makes me look like an idiot. And I was
Yeah, of
like, and it's not
course.
realistic on any side. And so I said like, if you guys want me to hit that number, I can do it, but I need this from you. And then I'll do all this stuff on this side. And I was like, and then we'll be happy days. And they were like, well, we're not going to do that. And I was like, well, then, okay, peace be with you. You know, it wasn't a bad thing. It was just like, okay, like we're done. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
like, what is the point? And so like, and it was fine. Like I understood like what they wanted. It's just like from the numbers that I had and all the like very detailed projections and where every lead is going, I knew everything. And I had a very efficient system in there. That was a lot of hustle muscle. Like we were doing like 30,000 dials a month, right? Just trying to like
Shit.
miracle shit, right? And again, it's nothing against them, but it wasn't their focus. It's like this is a nice to have revenue stream. So they're not going to fuck with their main money earner that earns them, $300 million a year, right? To make some extra coaching sales. Like, why would they give a fuck? And it's like
Yeah.
totally fair enough, man. Like, don't miss the machine, right? And so but that kind of stuff is pretty common, So like, slow business owners, and sometimes like we just shit the bed. Like I mean, we've had that where like we just had sales guys that just didn't do shit and didn't produce. Like that's happened, for sure, right? And so like but a lot of the time it's just the business owners like having one lead source, and then that lead source goes down, and it's like,
Mm.
and because we're comms only, there's no like there's no mad rush, right? Because they're not paying for it. But if you charge them 15 grand a month, they're going to do it faster. But they'll probably just end up getting rid of you. Do you know what I mean? Because like, they don't want to hold the fee and they don't
Yeah.
know how long it's going to take to get back and all that kind of stuff. So that's really most of the issues with sales agency comes around those things. So you got to
And what
sign
did
up
you
five to
see?
get one good one.
What were the major things that when you'd like go into a team, right? Like when you're doing more on the management side, what are like the first things that you look at that you'd break down to get those quick wins?
A lot of the time, I mean, you got to have a look at the stats and say what are the needle movers. Like at the moment, I put them straight onto my dialer. Like
Yeah.
because
Okay.
I can get your lead to set from 5% to 20% almost immediately, just because you have a high pickup rate,
Makes
right?
sense.
So that's a really fast one. But then you look at like show rates, you look at close rates. I very rarely touch like the close rates at all for even like the first 2 months, 3 months. Like don't even touch the scripts or anything. It seems like it's just kind of waste of time a lot of the time. So just have a look at like what are like the process things that we can fix that don't involve skill. You know what I mean? Break up the sales team so it's like, I would put like lead routing in, like straight away. The best guys get the best calls. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like straight away. And then focus on like speed to lead to set, lead routing. Those are probably the things that I think probably move the needle the biggest. And you can do them in the background, you know?
Yeah. Okay.
And then just get rid of deadwood, like lazy reps, like inbound only
Mm.
closer guys who are like, I'm special. It's like, you're not. I've got 100 of you. I've got 100 of you at the ready. Like, you're not special. And if you think you are, that's a problem, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like, unless you're closing to like 50% plus, like you're not special. You know what I mean? So,
Mm.
and getting rid of those people quickly. Because there's tons of attitude out there with people who are like, oh, like protect your time. It's like, motherfucker, you don't make any money. Don't protect your time. Like, I don't
Your
protect
time
my
is
time.
worthless.
Yeah, but it's not even that. Your time is obviously very worth to you, but it's not worth much to the company. Like, you know, fuck, man. Like, you know, like, I don't know you from Adam, mate. I'll jump on your podcast for an hour. Do you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like I make multi 7 figures a year personal income. This has probably cost me 10 grand. You know what I mean? Like if you look at it that way,
Not wrong.
right? So
100%.
but like some closer, it doesn't want to fucking speak to a guy because he didn't meet some sort of income threshold that he wouldn't meet. It's madness. It's like, what are you talking about? How are you supposed to get good if you don't talk to people? You know, like it's just
Yeah.
fucking crazy, man. It's just a bunch of fucking, you know what I mean? Like, and all these people that teach them, they fucking live in like Bali or they live in like fucking like cheap countries. It's like, you ever wonder why they have to live there? You ever wonder why the guys teaching you how to make money live in countries where the cost of fucking living is nothing? You know how easy it is to ball out in fucking Ecuador? You know?
It's a lot easier than Australia, I'll say
Yeah.
that.
You know what I mean? Like it's like, and there's nothing against them, but it's just like, I just don't like people telling people bullshit stories, you know? It's like, if you want to be good, you have to work really, really hard. And like, chances are the person who's making the most amount of money on a consistent basis in sales is the person who works the absolute hardest. Like, that's just, you know, common trait, right? And it's like, you know, people who tell you there's a right way and a wrong way of doing things, it's like, probably not. You know, there's probably 1,000 different ways that you could do it. And I'm sure that if they're done well, you probably have a great response either way, you know? Yeah.
What do you like? I guess what would be your advice now that you've had so much, like you've built all the teams, you've done all the calls, like literally probably more than anyone else I could say I know, in terms of sales calls. What would you boil it down to when someone's getting started? What would you want them to do for the first year to be able to put themselves on that success route?
I think like you've got to like, you want to put yourself, I think, in like difficult sales environments. Like, you know, I think, you know, selling something really high volume, low ticket. I think high ticket is a really dangerous place to start because like there's too much pressure, you know, like it's the reason why I'm so ruthless. Like when it comes to like looking at a new team is because like that business owner spent a lot of money on those leads, man. So like, you know, if a sales call costs $200, right? Like a good closer will have a high show rate, right? The show rate has a lot to do with the closer. You know what I mean? Because like there's a tons of things that you can do in order to have a really high show rate. And I proved that this year there was an offer that that I was managing, and it was like a business owner niche. They had nothing to do with me. Like none of those people would have known who
Yeah.
I am. It was totally outside of like, and so they all had like 35% show rates to sales call, right? This is from the funnel. And I was like, let me have a look. So I hopped on the calendar for 2 weeks. I did not have a single no show. Right?
Oh,
I just put myself on the rotator. And so as soon as, and I'm way busier than all these people, as soon as I had a sales call book in, I had a notification on my phone, right? I texted them
yeah.
immediately. I'd go onto their website based off their email, go onto their website and go, hey man, just had a look through your website, saw that you booked a call with me about XYZ on XYZ's day. You know, I've got a few questions for you, but is there anything that you need from me to make that a more productive call? Mate, every single one of them showed up. I think I had like 2 cancellations in 2 weeks. Every single one showed up. Because I just was shown to be a professional to take the effort to do the thing. And I was like, how the fuck am I on a rotator, like from ads, and I have 100% show rate, and you motherfuckers have 30? I was like, clearly it's a you thing, guys. Stop being so fucking lazy. Oh, you mean, can't we just do the automations? You lazy fuck. God, it's disgusting. You know what I mean? And it's not like, it's not me having a
100%.
rant. It's just like, you know, if that was a fucking dude, if that was a dude in snipers back in the day, and be like, oh, I have to fucking put my own scope on. You'd be like, get the fuck out, bro. You just kick him out of the unit. You wouldn't even think twice. You'd be like, oh, I don't need you here, mate. Like, if you think that's too hard, Jesus Christ. You
I
know
was
what I
gonna
mean?
say, how much do you feel like how you approach sales now and how you like run everything comes back from your time in the military? Because I mean, I know we didn't talk on this today, but if you want to just give a quick summary of what you did
Yeah,
in the military,
I
so it's
was
quite cool.
a sniper in like a Australian tier 1 special operations group called 2 Commander Regiment. Um, But yeah, like, I don't know. To be honest, it's a hard question because man management in the military is like comically terrible, and most people who stay in the army long enough to be leaders are fucking retarded, right? Like that's just the truth of it. Like same as politicians. That's in Australia. In the U.S. it's different because like you can just be a politician, but in Australia you have to like work your way up to like the parliamentary ranks, and you have to go from bottom to top. Like that's how it works, right? So
Mm.
like if you have any ounce of brain in you, right, you're gonna get taken by private, right? Like, 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 do you live in New South Wales?
No, no, I don't.
Okay, cool. So in New South Wales, we had a phenomenal transport manager, right? The dude
Yeah.
fucking revolutionized shit, made everything 10 times better, right? The moment he was up for re-election, fucking boom, I think it was Telstra, $5 million a year salary, right? He was like, I'm out, right? Because he's
Yeah.
awesome at his job, and it's very obvious, right? And so, like, in the
Mm.
military, it's the same fucking thing, for the most part. You do get your outliers, but most of the time, the military, it's a very creatively stifling endeavor. The pay isn't very good, right? And like moving up in the officer rank world, which I wasn't an officer, but an officer world is just about fucking stabbing people in the back and sucking dick, right? Like you just have to be fucking super nice to people's faces and then stab them in the fucking back because there are so many positions, right?
Mm.
And so
Yeah.
like the really good ones just get flanked out by the really shit ones. The really good ones leave. One of the best examples of that was a guy named Ian Langford. And he basically got fucking ran out of the military, one of the greatest officers ever in the fucking history of the military. And now he runs a think tank, right? Like he's the head of a fucking think tank. He's a goddamn genius, right? And he had the men rally behind him, right? Which is terrifying for like generals. Generals are retarded. Like they're idiots, they're morons. I'll tell that to their face. I have told that to their face. I have no problem saying that. Like if you have managed to stay in the military for that long, you are fucking worthless, right? For the most part, there are exceptions to every rule, right?
Sure.
But and like people can yell at me, I don't care, right? I know I was in, right? I saw the pointy end of the spear. It wasn't that pointy, you know. So so I think you get an incredibly bad example of how to manage people and how to manage careers. There again, I had
Mm.
one guy who I think was phenomenal, whose name I won't say his name because he's still in, so well, protected identities and all that kind of bullshit. But I had one guy who was a phenomenal man manager, and he was great, and I think he taught me a lot. I think that the one thing that I figured out is that like there's always a solution to the problem, right? Which is I think in special operations, especially in snipers, as a community, it's a problem-solving community, right? Because like you can't not solve the problem, otherwise you just fucking what are you gonna do? Die? Like that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So I think like I think what I learned is that like I can do really hard things and be okay, and like I like who I am under extreme stress. You know, so like I'm
Mm.
the best version of myself in the worst possible scenarios, and so like that gives me a sense of comfort that like there's
Yeah.
nothing I
Okay.
can't handle, and so like my whenever anything bad happens, and it sounds like a trope, but I go like okay, well something like what's the how do we make this into a good, like when catastrophic things happen, how do we make this into a good? And I think like that's one of the largest differences between people who succeed in business and people who don't, is just like the instead of saying like, oh well, this is the obstacle, you say how can I. Like if I said to you,
Mm.
Liam, how do you make $100,000 in the next 2 weeks? And you go, oh well, I can't because, or you go, well, if I had to, this is how I would do it. And then you start
Mm.
thinking down that process and that line for long enough to where you go, huh, well, I mean, I'm gonna give you that crack. You know what I mean? Like, and then you try
Yeah.
it and then like you learn stuff and maybe you make 30. It's like, oh fuck, I just made 30 grand in 2 weeks. You know what I mean? Like, you're just like, oh, okay. And so, you sort of figure that shit out. Like, how would I double my sales in 3 months? Like, how would I?
How would you? How
You
would
know
you?
what I mean? Well, everyone's different, right? But like, you've got to have, you got to identify problems, and then you got to have a strategic plan in order to actually execute on those problems, right? If you try and fix multiple things at once, you'll never learn which one actually did it. So you have to have the discipline of only fixing one thing, knowing that 10 are broken,
Mm.
right? Which
That's
is where the
powerful.
real discipline comes in, right? And so it's like, okay, I know I need to improve in these 5 areas, but I'm only going to work on this one for the next 2 weeks. Because if I've got 12 weeks and 5 things, if I do 2 weeks on each one, right, then I will like solve that problem and then move on. And then I will get a tangible uptick every 2 weeks, right? You know? And that's
Yeah.
kind of how you do it, you know, so you don't adjust your elevation and wind at the same time type thing.
And I guess that really does like, do you think that you had that discipline before you went into the military, or do you think the military helped focus in at least that style of problem solving of one thing at a
I was
time, or
like
had you done
18,
that prior?
19. I don't really have an answer. I don't know.
Yeah,
You
okay.
know, I was the kid in school, like I was like horrific in school until I got medicated. I got on ADHD medication, right? I was like the kid that was like a nuisance in class clown, tons of potential, seems smart when you talk to him, but like can't read, right? And then I
Mm,
got on medication and I immediately became the top of the class without having to study. So I went to like the opposite. I went from like all of like the retard programs into like the fucking talented and gifted, right? Like basically immediately. It was like a switch that happened overnight because I walked into school one
okay.
day on medication and I could actually hear. And I was like, "Oh, like the volume of the world was turned down." And so I could listen and I had developed a phenomenal audio memory, right? Because I couldn't
Okay.
read
Yeah.
for shit. And so I would just listen. And by listening, I could absorb and understand. And so I like didn't do homework. I didn't study for the SATs because I grew up in the States. I fucking nailed them, right? I got into like a bunch of colleges, you know what I mean? And then like just didn't go. Joined the army instead. I got into Duke. I got into like, yeah, everywhere I applied for, I got in. Because I was a salutatorian in my high school, so I had second highest grades. I was in the
Wow.
National Honor Roll Society. I was the captain of the Brain Bowl team. I was captain of the football team, and I was yeah, like had a really good GPA, like SAT score, and I finished all my high school classes by year 11. So year 12, I was like half days.
Yeah. Okay.
So like
Nice.
I basically finished all the high school requirement by year 11. But you have to sort of be in year 12 because I was too young. Like I could have gone to college technically, I think, but like I was still in high school because like I wanted to play football and I think I had like one
Mm,
credit I had to do. So my last year of high school was really weird. So I had like one class that I had to do, and then I had like because I had to be there for a certain amount of hours, otherwise you were considered a truant, right? Because you had to be in school legally. I don't know if it's the same
yeah.
now, but it was back then. And so I had like just all electives, right? I don't know if it's the same way in Australia, but you have electives like so I had like a sports
Yeah.
administration class. Literally all we did was play fantasy football, fantasy baseball. I had dude, I just did electives, like random shit that you can just do. So I just had back to back electives all day. And then I finished school at like I think it was like 1:30 every day for my high school. And then but I had to stay around because I had football practice. Right? So like
Okay.
I
I
was
gotcha.
I was just fucking chilling around the school doing my thing. It was weird. It was a weird time. It was fun though. I enjoyed high school. But yeah, so like the answer is like I don't know. Like I never really had to try very hard in those scenarios because I was
Your brain
lucky
just did it
enough.
for you.
I was lucky enough to have a brain that allows me to absorb information and apply it very quickly, which is a an advantage that is not lost on me.
Mm.
You know, so it's unfair, but I'll take it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's no point to give it away. You can't.
Yeah, but yeah, so yeah, but yeah, man, I do
That's
have to
awesome.
run, but
No, of course. Well,
that
Matt,
was
I
awesome.
really appreciate you taking the time and coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure. And yeah, thanks for dropping some different knowledge bombs on us.
No, appreciate it. When's this gonna come out? So I don't screw up your